Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, October 17th, 2024, and you're listening to Alex's News. The high in Riverside today will reach 73.5 degrees, with a low of 62.0, making for a pleasant autumn day. Coming up on Alex's News, we'll explore the reasoning behind the United States' decision to send its most sophisticated bombers to Yemen. We'll also examine the challenges California counties might face in fulfilling the treatment promises outlined in Proposition 36. Finally, we'll discuss how the return of La Niña could influence winter weather patterns across the country. Stay tuned for these stories and more on Alex's News. We begin with breaking news from Yemen, where the United States has launched a significant military operation against Houthi rebels. For more on this developing story, we're joined by our Pentagon correspondent, Ethan. Ethan, what can you tell us about these strikes?
Grace, in a major escalation of U.S. involvement, the military has conducted strikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels using B-2 stealth bombers. This operation, which took place over the past 2 days, marks a significant shift in the U.S. response to ongoing Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea.
That's quite a development, Ethan. Can you give us more details about the targets and the scale of this operation?
Certainly, Grace. According to the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, the B-2 bombers targeted 5 hardened underground weapons storage locations in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. These strikes focused on areas around the capital Sana'a and the Houthi stronghold of Sa'ada. It's worth noting that this is the first time B-2 stealth bombers have been used against Houthi targets, underscoring the strategic importance of this mission.
Why were B-2 bombers chosen for this particular operation, Ethan?
Well, Grace, B-2 Spirit bombers have unique capabilities that make them ideal for this type of mission. They can carry up to 40,000 pounds of munitions, including massive 30,000-pound bunker-buster bombs like the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. Their stealth technology allows them to penetrate heavily defended airspace undetected, and they have sophisticated targeting systems for precision strikes against hardened, deeply buried facilities.
That's quite impressive. Now, what prompted these strikes? What led to this escalation?
The strikes were motivated by ongoing Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea, Grace. According to reporting from ABC News, the Houthis have targeted over 80 merchant vessels in the Red Sea with missiles and drones since October 2023. They've seized 1 vessel, sunk 2 others, and tragically, 4 sailors have lost their lives. These attacks are seen as retaliation for Israel's military actions in Gaza against Hamas.
This sounds like it could have broader implications. How does this fit into the regional context, Ethan?
You're right, Grace. This operation serves as an indirect warning to Iran, the main backer of the Houthi rebels. The use of B-2 bombers demonstrates U.S. capability to strike hardened targets like those Iran uses for its missile and nuclear programs. Additionally, there's evidence that the Houthis have invested in sophisticated underground facilities. Analysts have noted the construction of new large-scale underground installations near Sa'ada, believed to be similar to Iran's network of hardened underground missile bases.
That's concerning. How might this affect the broader regional tensions?
Well, Grace, this conflict is part of the wider regional tensions, including the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. There's potential for further escalation involving other actors like Hezbollah in Lebanon. In fact, UN Special Envoy Hans Grunberg has warned that the situation could pull Yemen deeper into regional instability. It's a complex and volatile situation that many are watching closely.
Thank you, Ethan, for that comprehensive report. We'll be sure to keep our viewers updated as this story develops.
You're welcome, Grace. We'll continue to monitor the situation and bring any new developments as they occur.
Thank you, Ethan. This has been story 1 of 3. Stay tuned for more news after the break. We turn now to a developing story about California's Proposition 36, which aims to address drug crimes through treatment rather than incarceration. Joining us to discuss this is our reporter Chloe. Chloe, can you give us an overview of what Proposition 36 entails?
Certainly, Grace. Proposition 36 is a ballot measure set for 2024 in California that promises mass treatment instead of jail time for certain drug offenses. However, there are growing concerns about whether counties can actually deliver on this promise due to various challenges they're facing.
What are some of the main challenges that counties are encountering?
Well, Grace, one of the biggest issues is resource constraints. According to reports, many California counties simply lack sufficient treatment facilities. In fact, 22 counties have no residential treatment facilities at all. There's also a significant shortage of treatment beds to meet existing demand, as highlighted by studies including one from RAND.
That sounds like a major hurdle. Are there any other resource-related issues?
Yes, outpatient care is also scarce in some areas. But perhaps even more concerning is the workforce shortage. The Health Force Center at UCSF has reported significant shortages in mental health and substance use disorder treatment professionals across California. This makes it extremely difficult to absorb additional patients who would be mandated for treatment under Prop 36.
I see. Now, Chloe, what about funding? How does Proposition 36 address the financial aspect of this treatment mandate?
That's a great question, Grace. According to multiple sources, Prop 36 doesn't actually allocate any new funds for treatment. In fact, Governor Gavin Newsom has referred to it as an unfunded mandate. There are concerns that it could potentially reduce funding from programs established under the earlier Proposition 47.
So if there's no new funding, how do supporters suggest paying for this treatment?
Supporters have suggested using funds from mental health bonds and opioid lawsuit settlements. However, the viability of this solution is disputed by many experts. Dr. Ryan Quist of Sacramento County, for instance, has noted that current capacity is insufficient to handle a new population of individuals needing treatment.
That certainly sounds challenging. Chloe, what do we know about the effectiveness of mandated drug treatment programs?
The evidence is mixed, Grace. Some studies show higher completion rates for mandated treatment, but long-term outcomes in reducing drug use and recidivism are less clear. A systematic review found limited scientific evidence supporting improved outcomes from compulsory treatment, with some studies even reporting negative impacts.
Given these challenges, what are some potential consequences if Proposition 36 passes?
Critics, like Christine Soto DeBerry of the Prosecutors Alliance of California, argue that promising treatment when it's not available could actually lead to increased incarceration instead. There are also concerns about criminalizing poverty and exacerbating over-incarceration of Black and brown people.
Are other states facing similar challenges with drug treatment mandates?
Yes, Grace. Other states with felony charges for drug possession are encountering similar difficulties in providing adequate treatment services. This suggests it's a broader systemic issue, not unique to California.
I see. And what do supporters of Proposition 36 say about these concerns?
Proponents like San Jose Copyright Mayor Matt Mahan believe Prop 36 will force investment in inpatient treatment systems. Yolo County District Attorney Jeff Reisig argues it will reactivate drug court paths and provide leverage for judges. However, many behavioral health experts and county directors remain skeptical about the feasibility of implementing such a program given the current lack of resources, facilities, and workforce.
Thank you, Chloe, for that comprehensive report on Proposition 36 and the challenges facing California counties in providing mandated drug treatment. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on this story as it develops.
You're welcome, Grace. It's definitely a complex issue that we'll continue to follow closely.
Indeed. Thanks again, Chloe. This has been story 2 of 3 in our morning news segment. Here are some other headlines. A new rule adopted by the Federal Trade Commission aims to make canceling unwanted subscriptions easier for consumers. The click-to-cancel rule requires businesses to simplify the cancellation process, making it as straightforward as signing up. Companies must also clearly disclose subscription terms and obtain explicit consent before charging for memberships or auto-renewals. Vietnamese real estate tycoon Truong My Lan has been sentenced to life in prison for fraud and money laundering. This follows an earlier death sentence for her role in Vietnam's largest financial fraud case, involving approximately $12.5 billion. The case is part of Vietnam's ongoing anti-corruption campaign. Vice President Kamala Harris's recent interview with Fox News marks a shift in Democratic strategy. the party has significantly increased its engagement with the network, doubling the number of Democratic guests compared to previous campaigns. This approach aims to reach a broader audience, including undecided voters and Republican-leaning independents. A new biography reveals that Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell privately called former President Donald Trump stupid and despicable after the 2020 election. The comments, made in the weeks leading up to the January 6 Capitol attack, express McConnell's frustration with Trump's behavior and its potential impact on Republican electoral prospects. The Biden administration has now canceled student loans for more than 1 million public workers through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. This milestone reflects significant improvements to the program, which had previously approved forgiveness for only 7,000 borrowers before the current administration took office. We're now turning to our third story of the day, which focuses on the potential arrival of La Niña and its implications for winter weather. Joining us to discuss this is our meteorologist, Ethan. Ethan, can you tell us what's brewing in the Pacific?
Certainly, Grace. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Climate Prediction Center, there's a 60% chance of a weak La Niña event developing this autumn. This event could potentially last until March 2025, which is quite significant.
That's interesting, Ethan. Can you explain what La Niña is for our viewers who might not be familiar with the term?
Of course, Grace. La Niña is part of a natural climate cycle called the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. During La Niña, trade winds in the Pacific strengthen, pulling cold water from the ocean depths to the surface in the eastern Pacific. This change in sea surface temperatures can have far-reaching effects on global weather patterns.
And how might this La Niña event impact different regions around the world?
Well, Grace, the impacts can be quite varied. For instance, in South America, northern regions may see increased rainfall, while southern areas could be drier than average. In the United States, the southern regions and Mexico are expected to be drier and warmer than normal. Conversely, the northern U.S. and southern Canada may experience wetter and colder conditions.
What about snowfall? I'm sure many of our viewers are wondering about that.
That's a great question, Grace. According to Samantha Borisoff, a climate scientist at NOAA's Northeast Regional Climate Center, areas like New England, New York, and the Great Lakes tend to be snowier during La Niña winters. However, it's important to note that snowfall predictions remain challenging and can be influenced by other factors.
Speaking of other factors, are there any other climate patterns we should be aware of?
Absolutely, Grace. The Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation can significantly impact weather patterns associated with La Niña. When these oscillations are in their negative phases, they can enhance cold air and potentially lead to significant snowstorms.
Ethan, there's been a lot of talk about climate change lately. Does it have any impact on La Niña events?
That's a complex question, Grace. The relationship between climate change and La Niña events is still not fully understood. Some climate models suggest we might see more frequent El Niños and less frequent La Niñas in the future. However, a recent study using outputs from the Coupled Model Intercomparison Project Phase 6 indicates that the frequency of multi-year La Niña events could actually increase under various emission scenarios.
That's fascinating, Ethan. One last question: when can we expect to see the effects of this potential La Niña event?
Well, Grace, if the La Niña does develop as predicted this autumn, we could start seeing its effects as early as this coming winter. However, it's important to remember that weather patterns can be influenced by many factors, so we'll need to keep a close eye on how things develop over the next few months.
Thank you, Ethan, for that comprehensive overview. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on this developing story.
You're welcome, Grace. It's always a pleasure to discuss these important climate patterns.
And thank you, Ethan, for joining us today with this insightful report. We'll be sure to check back with you as this story develops. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.